Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another live World Cup edition of Wondergoal. My name is Michael Leboff. I am the host of the show, and in just a moment, I'll be joined by my co-hosts, my friends, my heroes, Anthony Dabbundo, BJ Cunningham, and together the three of us will preview the last slate of matches in the group stage. There's 16 of them. We've broken them down into our favorite bets. We'll talk some marquee matchups. Team USA versus Iran is one of those marquee matchups. And then we'll do a little rapid fire before we get out of here. But before I bring in my co-host, a reminder that this show is brought to you by bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION to get bet365's exclusive sign-up offer in New Jersey and Colorado. Bet $1, just $1 on any game. You get 200 free. BJ and Anthony, welcome. BJ, we're going to start with you. Your favorite bet for these final group stage matches in the World Cup.
I mean, you could call it a grudge bet, Michael, but I'm going to take Costa Rica not to score against Germany at -140. This comes down to this Costa Rica offense has been the worst of the entire tournament. They did not register a shot against Spain. They registered just 4 shots, 0.11 expected goals, no shots in the penalty area, but they scored against Japan to ruin all of our future bets. But now they're going against a German team that is incredibly possession dominant. When they've had to face smaller sides throughout World Cup qualifying, they've really held them in check. Only 4 expected goals allowed in 7 matches to a bunch of smaller nations. And the game theory part of this is that Costa Rica, their only realistic shot at getting out of this group is to sit deep, play their park the bus style defense like they have throughout all of CONCACAF qualifying, all of the World Cup, and pray to God that Germany doesn't score, they get a draw, and that Spain beats Japan. So I don't expect Costa Rica to come out and play some type of open match with the Germans. Germans are incredibly good at pressing and keeping teams inside their final third. So I don't think Costa Rica is even going to sniff Germany's net. So I like them not to score at -140.
For me, my favorite bet, I'm rooting for chaos in Senegal versus Ecuador. The over 2.5 is +150. The way this game sets up, there's a lot of game theory involved in basically every one of these matches that we'll talk about. But for this one, Ecuador gets through as long as they don't lose this match. Senegal gets through if they win. So the narrative is going to be, and we're going to talk about this with USA versus Iran, that Ecuador is going to sit deep and they're just going to dare Senegal to try to beat them 1-0. People think, all right, if that's going to be the case, I'll bet the under. But the real way to think about this is one goal completely throws this match off script. Whether it's an early goal from Ecuador, that means Senegal's now got to score 2 to advance, or a goal by Senegal, meaning Ecuador now needs to open things up to get the goal to earn themselves a draw to advance. So I'm going to play into that chaos. I think there's a lot of situations on this board, these last 16 matches, where this kind of game theory sets up, and you'll notice that the under is always going to be overvalued. So you want to bet against that. And I think that these two offenses have actually shown some teeth, Ecuador especially. They've been very impressive. I think that this game could end up being one of the wildest of these last round of matches. So I like the over 2.5 at a good number. It's +150 right now. So that's where I'm going for my favorite bet of these final group stage matches. Anthony, what's your favorite?
Yeah, I'm going to take both teams to score in the Cameroon and Brazil match at +115. Cameroon's actually been quite lively going forward. They've created three expected goals, which is actually 6th best in the tournament. Only France, Germany, Spain, Brazil, and Croatia have created more expected goals going forward than Cameroon. They have nothing to lose here. They have to go out and challenge Brazil. They have to come out and play. And I actually think they match up better in terms of trying to get at this very good Brazilian defense than the last 2 opponents. Serbia is a heavily dependent on crossing team. They need to get possession out wide in deep areas to get crosses into Vlahovic and into Mitrovic. That didn't really work because they couldn't sustain any kind of possession at all. Switzerland is a very slow build-up and possess team that typically likes to also rely on crosses or Breel Embolo bringing the ball into the penalty area. Also very good on set pieces. They didn't get a lot of those because, once again, they couldn't really sustain possession against the Brazilian counter press. But that's a different situation here because Cameroon actually has runners that can get in behind of Brazil, that can give kind of a different challenge to Brazil. And I wouldn't be shocked if we saw Brazil rotate some of its players, given that they've already advanced to the next round. They only need a draw to advance. Even a loss, they're probably still going to win the group. So Brazil's in a bit of a coast mode here. It's a classic sleepy spot for the Brazilians. I like both teams to score +115 in the Brazil-Cameroon match.
Okay. with those out of the way, let's talk about our marquee matchups, and let's talk about the marquee matchup in the entire group stage. That's Iran plus 300 against the United States of America, even money favorites on the three-way money line at bet365. The draw here is plus 240. The situation is this: USA, anything other than a win, and their tournament is over. They go home. Iran gets through with a draw or a win, unless something crazy happens. In England and Wales, game theory aside, I think that the thinking here is that the United States has a significant talent advantage. Like in a vacuum, BJ, the US to a man, almost everybody in their starting 11 would crack the Iranian starting 11. Is that talent advantage enough to bet into at this number?
I think in the midfield and defensively, especially, what was the big difference between the Iran match against England and the Iran match against Wales is that Iran was able to get at Wales, get at them in transition because Wales is pretty weak in the midfield. The United States absolutely competed with England in the midfield. They took away a lot of easy passes. It's why you saw Harry Maguire and John Stones consistently just passing the ball back and forth to each other, is because they couldn't open up lanes for Mason Mount or Jude Bellingham to actually get the ball moving forward. Well, this is going to be a much, much different scenario where the United States is going to be asked to have the ball. They're going to be asked to break down a low block because guess what? Iran, they're very compact defensively, but they do lack the talent that Wales does, especially in defense. All 8 of their guys in the 2 back lines of 4 do not play in one of Europe's top 5 leagues. And even coming in to the World Cup, Iran was way overdue to concede defensively. They can only conceded 8 goals throughout World Cup qualifying off of 16.7 expected. Now, the United States does not have the passers in the midfield that England does. So what they're essentially going to have to rely on is a lot of crossing, getting the ball out wide to Pulisic, whoever's going to be starting at the right. I hope to God it's Reina, and try to actually beat Iran with a bunch of crosses. It hasn't been successful so far. We've had 46 crosses and only completed 4 of them. But again, the talent gap in the midfield that the United States has here, if we decide to truly play our best attacking players, I do like the United States to eventually get that big breakthrough. Also, Iran is still on their backup goalkeeper. So I like the United States at even money. I project them at minus 131. So I think there's a little bit of value on the Americans here. And I do think they have that talent advantage in the midfield and in defense.
I'm going to join you backing the U.S. I think it's maybe a little inflated. I think you have to pay a little bit of a tax considering where U.S. closed against Wales. And now, I think we've learned that Wales and Iran are pretty much peers. So the fact that they're 50 cents shorter is, you're going to have to eat some tax to bet the United States, but I'm still going to do it. And I think my favorite way to do it is parlaying them, same game parlay with the U.S. and the over 2.5. You could also bet both teams to score. Because like I mentioned with Senegal versus Ecuador, in this situation, the narrative, you've heard it if you've watched the World Cup coverage on TV, everyone's just talking about, we just need to score. We just need to get 1 goal past Iran. They're going to defend. It's Carlos Queiroz. Like he's built his whole reputation as a manager, taking whether it's Real Madrid or Colombia or Egypt and Iran for a long time and turning them into teams that are very comfortable in these kind of situations where they just need to defend deep and grind out results. So everyone's thinking Iran's going to sit back. The United States is just going to probe and hope to get 1 goal over the line. And sure, that can happen. But once again, an early goal, and this game becomes bonkers because if it's Iran who scores, now the U.S. needs to score 2. If it's the U.S. who scores, Iran's got to get on the board to advance. And I think that the United States attacking talent, like you mentioned, not just in the midfield, going forward, going wide, we saw England do a very good job of stretching Iran, right? So Anthony Robinson, Serginho Dest going down the flanks could stretch out a defense that, as Anthony will tell us, is very compact. They like to sit back and like to absorb and stick together and defend that box with their lives. So I think that there are some talent advantages. There are some creativity advantages for the United States that they can kind of get this defense to spread out, get that goal. And if it's Iran who scores on a counter, then it just turns this game into, how many more are going to be scored because you hope that the U.S. can get a couple across the board to advance. So I think this game has chaos written all over it. I hope that the U.S., that the talent ends up winning out in what could be like a 3-1 victory. So I like betting the same game parlay with the U.S. money line and the over 2.5. But I think any kind of correlated bets to it being more chaotic than these odds imply are all going to provide you value. Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is the same problem the U.S. had against Wales. I think they're going to have a similar issue in this match trying to break Iran down. And Serginho Dest and Anthony Robinson have been excellent in this tournament. I think they've been extremely good. Christian Pulisic, outside of his set piece taking, has been really good at progressing the ball into the final third. but they have a big hole at striker, and I don't know that they're going to be able to solve that problem. That being said, I do like both teams to score, but I also lean toward Iran here plus a half. I just don't think there's that much of a gap between these teams. And how much can we trust the attacking units coming out of CONCACAF? Not any of them have outperformed expectations. Mexico has just 1 expected goal in 2 matches. Costa Rica, BJ already talked about them, 0.1 expected goals in 2 matches. United States sitting down at 1.4 in 2 matches. And they played England, who's one of the best defensive teams in this tournament. But even in what we would consider a good attacking performance, they were still under 1 expected goal. So it is a concern. I agree with Michael that both teams to score is once again deflated, and that there is value in both teams to scoring this match because of the narrative thing and how this is supposed to be played out super tight. Game theory and game state is so important though. So if it's 0-0 at half, yeah, both teams to score is probably in trouble. But if there is an early goal, this game will get chaotic. You saw it today with Uruguay and Portugal. As soon as the first goal gets scored, and it's happened at many matches in this World Cup, the entire thing changes. We've seen a lot of either 0-0 at halftime or 2-3 goals in the first half because the game's open and they change. So there is a lot of game state that matters, but from a matchup point of view, I just don't know that the U.S. will create enough to get over the line. Of course, they can take one of their lower quality chances and turn it into a goal. I think Weston McKennie is a huge key in this match because similar to how Jude Bellingham overwhelmed Iran by being the extra man in the box, McKennie's kind of the person who would do that for the United States. Whether he's able to get in the box and finish off some chances could be the difference between going home and going through.
All right, that's USA and Iran. They're playing Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. A reminder that to avoid another disgrace of Guion, which we saw in the 1982 World Cup, where West Germany and Austria had a handshake agreement to play out to a 1-1 draw, which saw them both get through. These matches in their groups will all be played simultaneously. So USA versus Iran will happen at the same time as Wales and England, and so on and so forth. Let's talk about a Thursday kickoff, 10 a.m. Eastern time between Belgium and Croatia. Now, Belgium are in a lot of trouble. We had them circled as a fraudulent, vulnerable favorite coming into the tournament. They've proven us right so far. They still have a chance to advance. They need to win against Croatia to do so. This game is basically a pick'em at bet365. Belgium plus 160, Croatia plus 170, the draw plus 240. We're all in agreement here, BJ, and it's no surprise who we agree on.
Yeah, I like Croatia draw no bet at even money. I mean, Belgium has looked completely fraudulent. I want to read you a couple of quotes here really quick, Michael. After the win against Canada, Kevin De Bruyne said, "We're not going to win the World Cup because we're too old. Our best chances in 2018, which is kind of what we said coming into the tournament. Well, after the loss to Morocco, Jan Vertonghen, Tottenham legend, said, yeah, we probably attacked badly too today because we are too old, right? So I don't think the Belgians are playing really inspired ball right now. And they really have not looked great at all. They've only created 1.7 expected goals. They've allowed 3.9. They've looked completely vulnerable at every single position on the pitch. Their attack has generated next to nothing. Kevin De Bruyne is only effective when he's got really good players around him. Eden Hazard, he has just been so bad. He can't dribble past anybody. I don't understand why he's still on the pitch. Leandro Trossard should be playing ahead of him. Romelu Lukaku might be back for this match, but he's been injured for the last 2 months, and he wasn't in good form even before the injury. So I don't really know what the Belgians are going to do going forward in attack, and they've shown a lot of vulnerabilities in transition, and this Croatian midfield has shown that they're just as good as they were in 2018. They absolutely throttled Canada after giving up that first goal. They created a little bit over 2.5 expected goals. Modric, Kovacic, Brozovic were so good at playing the ball in between the lines, playing the ball out wide. They were able to just do whatever they wanted against Canada, and they should be able to do the exact same thing here in this matchup as well. So I like Croatia, draw no bet at even money.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the odds, they tell you that these two teams are peers, they're equals. And I think we've learned in this tournament that isn't the case. Croatia took it to Canada. Belgium looked like they played like an underdog against Canada. They played like an underdog against Morocco. They got played off the pitch, and Croatia, they struggled with Morocco, who I think everyone has now learned is better than the market implied coming into the tournament. So I don't know in what world you can make these two teams even in the odds. So I like Croatia too. I like them on the money line. I don't hate the idea of backing Croatia on an alternate line, -1.5, -2.5, to back a blowout, because as you alluded to with those quotes, BJ, Belgium just doesn't seem to be at the races at all. They don't even seem to care. There doesn't seem to be a game plan. They're frustrated with each other. I mean, we try to stay away from narratives in the eye test, but in international tournaments, it is much more of an art than a science when it comes to handicapping. And this team just does not seem to really care about this tournament at all. As weird as it sounds, they've offered very little going forward. I can't get it past this number here. I think that Croatia is a terrific price on the money line. And like I said, if you want to take a shot on some big prices, they have the ability, which they showed against Canada. If you give them time in the midfield, they'll pick you apart and they'll create a ton of big scoring chances. So Croatians for me, and Anthony, you'll make it 3 for 3.
I will. And if you look at the expected goals allowed in this tournament, the only teams that have allowed more expected goals than Belgium, Australia, who played France, Serbia, who played Brazil, Costa Rica, who played Spain, Cameroon, who we know is a particularly weak defensive side, and then there's Belgium. And I think that kind of gets at the point. Belgium played Morocco and Canada. They didn't play, a murderer's row of opponents. They didn't play two elite teams. I mean, we all like Morocco, but let's be honest, they're not like a dynamic attacking side. And that kind of gets at the point. This defense has gotten exposed because they just can't run. They're old. They're extremely unathletic at this point in a lot of their careers. Vertonghen and Alderweireld don't cover ground like they used to. Even the midfield is lightweight. Onana is now suspended for this match. He picked up 2 yellows. So that's another, one of their more dynamic defensive midfielders out of the picture. So what's the case for Belgium here? There's not really one to make. And I think Croatia, this line has come down. Croatia was plus 200. They don't need to win necessarily. They could draw and go through, but they do need to win the group. So there is incentive to go win this match. And I think that Belgium will need to push numbers forward to try to get in the box and get goals. And similar to what they just did to Canada, I think they're going to exploit this midfield and this defense in those transition opportunities with that elite midfield. So I think Croatia is definitely live here.
Now we have to talk about our beloved Samurai Blue. Japan, they're taking on Spain. This game's also Thursday. This one's at 2 p.m. Eastern, though. Japan's plus 750 against Spain, who's minus 250. The draw here is plus 350 at bet365. Yeah, BJ, your side tells us the entire story. We had Japan circled. We knew that this team could cause a lot of chaos in a group with Spain and Germany. And it looked like they were going to do it, Anthony. They defeat Germany in a 6-1 upset. And then what do? They pay us back by losing to BJ's bogey side. Costa Rica, 1-0. And now, we're talking about a huge mountain for Japan to climb. They basically need to beat Spain to get through. They're plus 750, BJ. Is there a case to be made for our beloved Samurai Blue, a team that we all have different kinds of exposure to in the futures market, to make some noise and maybe pull another stunner?
Well, there's definitely a case to be made for Japan, right? Because all Spain really needs to do to win this group is to draw, assuming Costa Rica actually somehow beats Germany, which is not going to happen. The problem I have in this matchup is Japan is going to have to go for it. They're going to have to play very aggressive with all of their pressing and everything like that. Germany created over 3 expected goals against Japan. Like, they just didn't take advantage of their opportunities. Spain is a really, really difficult team to get the ball off of. They're so good at well drilled in their passing. So this could be a situation where Spain just picks them apart, and we're staring at a 3-0 Spain lead with 3 Alvaro Morata goals, all assisted by Jordi Alba. And I just have major concerns about Samurai Blue being able to defend this Spain team. Now, they could take advantage of a couple of counterattacks. I mean, like we've said, Spain has looked very vulnerable, especially in transition and when they're out of possession. But I'm not sure how much possession Japan's actually going to have in this match. So they're really, really going to have to take advantage of the few opportunities they get in front of net. So I'll be passing at this number. I'm just sad that we're sitting here. We should have been talking about how Germany's already eliminated and who's going to win the group between Spain and Japan, but we're not, because we got Costa Rica once again.
Yeah, you got Costa Rica. Japan got CONCACAF. I'm going back to Samurai Blue here. They're plus 750. Against Germany, they were 6-1. I think Spain's a better team than Germany, but just how much better are they? Does it justify that long of an odds adjustment based off of one terrible result? I don't think so. I think that Japan, we talked about it coming into the tournament, this team profiles very well as a big underdog because their ability to punish you for any little mistake that you make. We saw it against Germany. That second half, Japan was swarming and was all over them. And even though they were fine with giving up stuff going the other way, they were going to take their chances, and they were going to play this high wire act, and then ended up getting them two goals in the second half for a very famous win. Can it happen again? It's unlikely, but that's why they're a big long shot here. They're plus 750. They're not likely to win this match, but I think that those odds still underrate this team. If Japan just took care of business against Costa Rica, if it was 0-0, I think these odds are slashed considerably. So I think that this is a little bit of an overreaction. I don't know. I'm not sitting here saying Japan's going to win. They're not going to upset Spain. I don't think it's likely, but it's plus 750 with this team. We know that their ceiling's really high. They've surprised us once. Why not do it again? This World Cup, it's a World Cup, Anthony. Anything can happen.
It is true. And I agree that stylistically, this is also a great matchup. And that's why I'm also betting once again, both teams to score. I think, the theme of this tournament through the first 2 rounds has been trending toward the under, especially first half unders. I think the books have come down a little bit here. And now I'm getting, minus 108. I think Spain, but BJ's right. Like there's major concerns. You need some kind of variance to work to pull off an upset like Japan did in the first match and like Costa Rica did against Japan in the second match. But from a stylistic point of view, Japan can have the same similar kind of success in transition with Doan, with Asano. And that's as long as Moriyasu decides he's going to play as good players, because that's been a problem for Japan at the World Cup. Look, they played a great lineup and had a great approach against Germany. And then Moriyasu said, no, we'll sit our 5 best attacking players against Costa Rica and we'll lose. So now he has no choice. He has to play the good players because this is the winner go home match, essentially. And I think that will lead to some transition opportunities for Japan against Spain. If we have, the same problem and the question mark that I had about Spain, despite being long on them to win this tournament, was that could they resist enough in transition when they lose the ball because they're so used to having it and the center backs are a bit of a question mark. Well, I think we're going to find out here, and I think Japan could test them. I do think Spain wins, and I think they overwhelm them ultimately, but I think Japan will get on the board.
All right, before we get out of here, let's do a quick rapid fire segment. Pick out one more bet that we like in these next 16 matches before we get to the round of 16. And BJ, we'll start with you.
I like Poland +1 at +105. Argentina flat out stunk against Mexico. Yes, they scored 2 goals, both from outside the box. One of them was from Messi, so he'll be hailed as a god. But they created 0.28 expected goals. They had an expected threat of 0.83. They only had 2 penalty box shots and 4 deep completions. Poland is a team that is going to set up very defensive. It's how they're well drilled and ready to play. We've mentioned all the time with Poland, like it's Lewandowski or bust, like they're way too direct. Like he has no support up top. That's fine. They only need a draw in this match, and they're going through to the round of 16. They have capable center backs like Szczesny. They have a capable goalkeeper like Szczesny and some capable center backs to play there as well. And Argentina just has a bunch of tactical flaws right now. What's happening with them when they are in possession, when the center backs are controlling the ball, they're in a 4-0-6. So their midfielders getting pushed way too far up the pitch. Nobody's in the middle of the pitch to come to receive the ball. So they have to swing it out wide to their average fullbacks to just swing in crosses. And it's very, very difficult to get Messi the ball. He only had 10 passes received between the lines against Mexico. That's his lowest in an Argentina shirt of his career. So what's going to change against Poland, who's going to sit even deeper than Mexico? So I'm on the Polish side +1 at +105. They only need a draw to get through, like I already said. So they'll be playing very defensive. And essentially what you're betting on here is Argentina to score from outside the box, which Messi can do. But again, variance can happen. So I like Poland +1 at +105.
I'm going to stay in that group for my favorite bet. I like Saudi Arabia on the money line. They're +375 against Mexico, who are -150 in this match. That's crazy. Mexico have been one of the least impressive teams in the entire field, especially going forward. The Saudi Arabia team, not only did they pull the upset against Argentina with an incredible tactical masterclass from their manager, the effervescent Hervé Renard, they then played Poland off the pitch in the first 30, 45 minutes of that match. And it took a long time for Poland to get on the board. And it was against the run of play. So Saudi Arabia, in my estimation, have kind of proven themselves to be almost in this tournament at this very moment, almost equals with Mexico, almost equals with Poland. So why is Mexico -150? You're getting near 4-1 on Saudi Arabia. They've already almost pulled 2 upsets. They've already pulled one as a 22-1 underdog. They almost did it again to Poland as obviously a much shorter price, but this team can punch up. They're very technically sound in the middle. They have a very clear game plan. They're a cohesive unit, and the Mexico team is not that. So in a match that Mexico needs to win to advance, they should be a little more open. I think Saudi Arabia can definitely play into that and use that as a strength for them in this matchup and pay off at a really good price against a very, very pedestrian Mexican side. Anthony, what about you?
Yeah, only Costa Rica has fewer expected goals created at this tournament than the Mexicans. So I agree with you on that. And I'm going to take South Korea +1 against Portugal. The Portugal fraud has advanced to the round of 16. Congratulations to them on getting through. Congratulations to Ronaldo. Bruno Fernandes has actually been incredible this tournament. 2 goals, 2 assists. And credit to him for sustaining what is otherwise a very mediocre attack that, outside of a couple transition moments against Ghana, once Ghana was pushing for the goal, they have created next to nothing. They scored their first goal today off of a cross that just sailed into the goal after Ronaldo missed it. They only took 1 shot from inside the penalty area in the entire first 55 minutes of that match against Uruguay, despite controlling about 70% of the possession. And I think that's kind of the point. They have these good attacking players. They have the ability to keep the ball, but they don't have the ability to break down teams who are more defensive. And Korea, for all of their flaws, does have some avenues for attack here. They were very good in crossing today against Ghana. I think that was one way that, even though they lost the match, they completed 15 crosses into the penalty area. And I think that's a way to get at this Portugal team too, who has struggled a bit from an individual defending perspective. And so I think Korea is a little bit cheap here at +1, catching a full goal. I do think Portugal will kind of rotate through some of its top attacking players and whatnot, because they've already clinched. They only need a draw to secure the group, and a win might even be, or a loss would probably even still get them through. So this is not like the highest energy match necessarily for Portugal. So I like the +1 on Korea.
All right, gentlemen, that wraps up another live edition of Wondergoal. For BJ Cunningham, for Anthony Dabbundo, I'm Michael Leboff, wishing you the best of luck with all your bets, and USA the best of luck in their eliminator match against Iran on Tuesday.